Well, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that the NSA cannot just collect all of our data and throw it onto their big, massive hard drive in the desert out in Utah, and then pick through all of that and then say, oh, you said a naughty word when you were texting somebody, so we're going to prosecute you because we have the evidence. Apparently, the NSA says that all of that data collection they didn't go so far as to say it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. They came pretty close, but they said it at least violates the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So they took one step in the direction of saying that it is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. But it's pretty clear that they felt that was the case. They just didn't want to say that. All they said was that the bulk data collection exposed by Edward Snowden was not authorized under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And they also ruled that all of the FISA court authorizations of this data collection, which apparently it wasn't even authorized by FISA originally. I guess George Bush just decided to do it, out of his own free will. Just said we're just going to collect everybody's cell phone data, and and that's it. The FISA court later authorized it retroactively, I guess, and then reauthorized it a couple times. The Ninth Circuit Court threw all of that out, said, nope, it's all illegal. All of this is bad. You can't use this data that you've collected to prosecute anybody. And this was specifically in the case of I guess they were Somalis helping al-Shabaab, who were cited publicly as people who were only convicted because of the bulk data collection program. That's how the defenders of the bulk data collection program and the NSA spying defended it in the media. They said, oh, look, we got these terrorists who were funding al-Shabaab. We wouldn't have gotten them without the NSA's spying on all Americans. And the Ninth Circuit Court ruled interestingly and said, well, the NSA spying is illegal. But the NSA spying wasn't what convicted these people. The evidence from the NSA spying was not sufficient to convict them. It was the other evidence that I assume the FBI had on these people that was why they were convicted. So it totally counters the narrative that was being pushed by the defenders of the NSA in the media that this data collection program was integral in the case against these al-Shabaab supporters. So as of now, I guess you could say that there is nobody who has ever been caught and convicted based on this NSA program. Essentially, the NSA has just been collecting everybody's data for fun and spending a bunch of money and, sucking up the water resources in a desert state like Utah to cool all of their massive servers out in the desert for no reason. And frankly, I'm happy about that. I don't want them to use this data against people. And I'm glad that the court ruled that even if the NSA tried to use this data against people, it would be illegal. Though, it is interesting that, in this case, they did not throw out the convictions of these al-Shabaab supporters, based on the old fruit of the poisonous tree rule. So this is great news. This is something that should be celebrated. I don't know necessarily if this means that the NSA will stop collecting everybody's data. I would be surprised if they stopped that easily. My guess is that either the NSA will say, well, we never had legal authorization to do this to begin with, so we're just going to go on and keep doing it, because they knew all along that it was illegal, or the NSA or the FBI or whoever has standing in this case is going to try and appeal this ruling on the Ninth Circuit up to the Supreme Court. Now, the Ninth Circuit Court is considered historically to be, a big lefty court, but they're also, I believe, the court that just ruled that California's ban on high cap magazines was illegal. So I guess the Ninth Circuit Court, it's been argued that Trump has been able to flip it during his administration with some, key appointments. But in this case, it's hard for me to say that this ruling is either left or right wing. It's just sort of, pro or anti-freedom. which when it comes to the Fourth Amendment and the right to privacy, that can go both ways, depending on who's president. Usually, when George Bush was president, being anti-spying and pro-freedom was considered a left-wing value, and then when Obama was president, it was considered a right-wing value, and now that Trump's president, I don't really know which, so, the three-judge panel that ruled, or well, anyway, the three judges who signed on to this decision, the judges that ruled against the NSA spying, were from a mix. The one who wrote the opinion was appointed by Clinton, and then the two that signed on with her, one was appointed by Obama, and the other one was appointed by George Bush himself, which was interestingly. So you have the two big, judges that were appointed by both of the big NSA spying presidents, Bush and Obama, actually, signed on and said this was illegal. So that in and of itself I find to be quite interesting. Now, if this does make its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, I have to say that the odds of the NSA spying being struck down by the Supreme Court have decreased in the last few months because of the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh to replace Justice whatever his name, Kennedy. I know Kennedy wasn't really his real name. Was it Anthony Kennedy that he called himself? I can't remember what his real name was, but his name was not Anthony Kennedy. That was a name that I guess he just sort of picked because it sounded nice. Maybe he was trying to, identify himself with with John F. Kennedy and all those guys. I don't know really what his thinking was. But anyway, from what I remember, Anthony Kennedy was much more strict when it came to policing and the right to privacy and stuff like that. He was much more likely to rule against law enforcement taking things a little too far when it comes to civil liberties. He seemed to lean on the side of letting a guilty man go rather than locking up an innocent man, if that makes sense. He always seemed to be someone who would lean sort of in favor of the defendant, of the ordinary person who was being prosecuted by the government. Now, Brett Kavanaugh, even though I believe he clerked for Kennedy, which was one of the reasons they picked him to replace Kennedy, is the exact opposite. Brett Kavanaugh is a very much a pro-NSA spying kind of guy. He thinks it's just fine that the government spies on everyone, and he thinks that is good and just and all a part of protecting our national security interests and whatnot. So were this to come to the Supreme Court, you can say, well, Roberts has moved to the left quite a bit since Kennedy left, trying to replace Kennedy and be the new center of the court. But has he moved left in the same way that that Kennedy was left? And Kennedy was very much a centrist. He would go one way or the other. I'm not going to call Kennedy left wing, but I don't know necessarily that Roberts is someone who would side with the right to privacy over the right of the government to just blanket collect information. I mean, to me, it would seem like a pretty big deal if John Roberts was all of a sudden, on the side of people saying that Edward Snowden was right. I mean, John Roberts, again, was a Bush appointee, but we had a Bush-appointed judge who was, on the Ninth Circuit here, who agreed with this judge who was saying that essentially that Edward Snowden was right. She name-dropped Ed Snowden 6 times, apparently, in her opinion. And I think this ruling is very much a vindication of Snowden. So if this goes to the Supreme Court, I'm pretty nervous. I don't know necessarily how things would shake out. But we'll see what happens at the Supreme Court if it gets there. With that all said, I'm going to keep following this and hope to have an update to see really what this ruling all means once there's more information out. But for now, if you gain anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.